You're going to have the Swifties come after me? Are you kidding me?
I'm a big Croc trash talker, man. Like,
cozy, sport mode off.
we literally saved our first million. We didn't inherit anything. We didn't get a windfall. 65% of Americans don't budget at all. The richest, most successful people do not. What is up, everyone? Welcome to Legit AF. We're the husband and wife team that talk about real issues in a no BS way, navigating the personal and the professional, and how to build a successful life and career in the modern world. You can catch our podcast with new episodes every single Tuesday morning across YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Are people still using the other ones? I'm not even sure. I'm Jenny. I am alongside this random guy that I met at a hackathon 13 years ago, Pav, my one and only. How's it going?
Random guy.
Random guy.
I was a random guy when we started, so no longer a random guy.
No longer a random guy. Now it's been 13 years.
13 years, and I've got a special treat for you today. I'm wearing my Crocs, cozy, sport mode off. For those of you that are on audio only, I've got the little flap up for comfort mode. You're usually trashing my Crocs, so I thought it might be a good idea to just wear it during this episode.
I'm a big Croc trash talker, man.
But I'm so comfortable right now. I just feel like I'm going to provide better content because I'm wearing my Crocs. And these have the nice little comfy lining on the inside too, so my feet are nice and warm.
Isn't it kind of redundant to wear socks with them then?
No, it's a little chilly out right now, so I figured, why not rock the socks and the Crocs?
Socks and Crocs.
Socks and Crocs.
Socks and Crocs, baby.
It's a classy look, and, I'm not ashamed of it. So,
well, at least you don't have those jewels?
Well, I didn't wear the jewels
Croc
today.
jewels?
I thought
what
maybe.
Are they?
Yeah, the little gems. I don't know. I'm sure there's a name for them, but not rocking those today. Just Croc classic.
Croc classic. Okay. All right. So today is going to be a very, very special episode. It is officially our first money episode. Money.
I love talking about finance. I love talking about money. So you're just going to have to cut me off at some point because I could go on forever.
Cash. Okay. We're going to be talking all about money today. Just as a heads up, everyone, this is not financial advice.
No.
Today's episode is how we think about money. So
yes,
this will be one of many. And I think the best way to kick it off is let's talk about the absolute stupidest thing that we have ever bought.
Oh boy. I mean, I've bought a lot of stupid things.
Yeah, I know.
Most of them on Amazon. So I think a lot of the things that I buy that are stupid so there's an entire category of just like arguably cool desk gadgets, things like a little moon that floats using magnets, or one time I bought a little digital clock that's made of a bunch of little pixels, and you can customize each one so it could show you different things depending on the time of the day. It tells you when your next meeting is. All of them completely worthless. None of them improved my life in any meaningful way. Just more garbage that I have on my desk.
Yeah, that really tracks for you. I don't even have really a desk. I wouldn't even ever think to decorate a desk. It's just not even something I would consider.
Well, it's because you just kind of work wherever you feel like it on any given day. So sometimes you're in the kitchen, sometimes you're in the living room. But I like to have my own workspace. Yeah,
I think that for me, the stupidest thing I've ever bought is got to be related to some sort of clothing or accessories.
Almost certainly.
Well, it's because
How many things have you bought that you've never put on once?
I would say I'm getting down to a low percent on that. It's not as bad as it used to be.
Like 25%?
No. Like 5%.
5%.
I would say, well, sometimes I buy in advance where I'm like, what if I find a jumpsuit that I like, or if I find a dress that I like and it comes in multiple colors and it's flattering and it's timeless, especially if it's a solid color, you want to get it in multiple shades.
Sure. You could be like me and just wear like the same 4 t-shirts on a rotation and keep it very, very simple.
I mean, yeah, you could, or you could actually like be interesting.
Thanks. Nice.
But okay, everyone buys stupid crap, of course. TikTok Shop, that something like 25% of Gen Zers were shopping on there every single week.
I don't even know how to do that. So I have really nothing to contribute there. Although I'm sure that if I did, I would probably be buying some kind of dumb tech gizmo that is completely worthless.
Yeah, you absolutely would. It's like junk. It's not really good stuff. It's kind of like in China, that kind of live streaming, almost like home shopping network style is so popular.
Well, I feel like Home Shopping Network is, and TikTok Shop, I imagine, is just an extension of something that's been around forever, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that only just instead of buying garbage on TV, you're just buying it off the internet?
100%. And it's like that little dopamine hit, the little like boop, boop, and then you forget that you bought it because you bought it at 11 p.m. And then all of a sudden 6 to 7 days later, something arrives at your door and you're like, what is this?
It's like the modern day commemorative plate or, presidential coin collection or something like that.
Okay. So people can buy a lot of useless stuff. And today's episode, we are going to be talking about the basics of how you start building a budget, particularly for couples.
Yeah.
And neither Pav or I are like financial advisors. I'm a VC. He's a startup executive. We have worked around money. We have managed money. We have had money in our day-to-day lives that we've managed. And so kind of today's episode is the basics of what got us started on our financial future.
Yeah.
And so one of the absolute biggest aspects of our lives and careers has absolutely been getting our financial future secured as a couple.
I would say it's one of the best decisions that we made early on in our relationship.
Yes, absolutely. And to give you context, some of you that are listening, you're probably pros at this. This is going to be an episode that is good for both newcomers and pros alike. I think it's really important to understand that the vast majority of people do not grow up learning about money. Certainly for the two of us, growing up in, blue collar areas, my parents have a 10th grade education. Money was not really a thing we talked about other than making sure the bills were paid. I didn't understand anything about this when I was a kid.
Yeah, it wasn't really a big topic of conversation in my family. And in school, I never really learned much about it. I mean, they taught us how to write a check and then how to balance your checkbook the old fashioned way, by filling out all the little pieces of paper and adding everything up, which immediately became obsolete once the internet came around. So no real education around finances or money growing up.
Yeah. And I think that it gets even worse because you're still a high schooler for some of us when you get the ability to get a credit card.
Right.
One of the things that also can really set people on the worst possible financial trajectory is student loans. And they allow you to sign those while you're still a teenager.
Yeah.
Something that I potentially think is unethical, to be totally honest. And so for us, we got started very young. We got married. I moved to America to marry Pav when I was 21. I was still in college. When we got married, we had not no money, but we actually had just some credit card debt. We didn't have
we were
two
in
pennies
debt.
to rub together.
We were in
all.
debt.
And our entire financial life that we have built has been 100% ourselves. Our education, we both got paid for by getting scholarships. We paid for all of our own homes. We've paid for everything in our lives. We've never gotten a cent from our parents, actually. And so for us, we had to learn how to save and budget super, super early on, a lot sooner than a lot of our friends, to be honest, right? Like in our early 20s, when we were starting to budget and think about, how do we make lunches at home and packing Tupperware, everybody else we knew were still going out and partying all the time.
Yeah, definitely. Cutting out all that nonsense, like drinking and spending money at the bar, especially when you're young. It's a great way to save money.
Yeah. Also a health investment, but that's a story for another podcast. So for us, this is how we learned about it. And we're presenting, everything that has got us to, we are multimillionaires. We actually, fun fact, made our very first million by
just grinding.
Saving. We literally saved our first million. We didn't inherit anything. We didn't get a windfall. We just literally saved our first million, which they always say that your first million is your hardest, and it absolutely is because they start to compound after that. But today's episode is really going to just talk about what is the baseline that got us started on this journey. So with that being said, let's kind of set the groundwork of where America's at today. because this always shocks me, to be totally honest. 65% of Americans don't budget at all.
Right.
So that's about 2 in 3.
Which means you're already starting off on the wrong foot because you have no idea what's going on. So how could you possibly make smart decisions?
Yeah. And I know that there's a lot of people out there that honestly, I know people that are in all socioeconomic levels and all career levels that are in this position. You can be bad and irresponsible with money and make 20 grand a year or make 250K. Like if you have the wrong mindset and the wrong attitudes and habits, how many people did we know living in Silicon Valley that were making, 500 grand a year, 750 grand. If you got 2 people that are working in FANG, you're easily pulling over $1 million a year, living paycheck to paycheck.
Right.
Literally.
It's lifestyle creep, classic, right? You start earning more money, so you start spending more money. And ultimately, the only thing that matters at the end of the day is money in and money out. And if most of that money's going out and you're spending it on expensive dinners, expensive clothes, expensive housing, in excess of what you actually might need, expensive car, you name it, all of that's just money that you're burning away because you're not actually saving any of it.
Yeah. And that's the thing I think everyone needs to realize is that the need to budget and to manage your money effectively is a need across all income levels. It's a need across all socioeconomic levels. It is not unique to any one specific group. Now, with that being said, as of last year, a survey found that 57% of Americans have less than $1,000 in savings. 39%, so that's 2 out of 5 Americans, have no savings at all. 61% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. And that actually, there you go, and 42% of that includes those that make 6 figures.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of things that come into play here. We've got bigger issues that we're not going to tackle today that make it more difficult for people to save in 2025. But the bottom line is, if you don't understand where your money's going and you're not actually thinking about paying yourself first, then you're never going to actually be able to save money. And small baby steps go a long way. Like, we didn't get to $1 million overnight. It took us years, and that process compounded on itself. The longer we spent time saving money, the easier it was to get to that $1 million benchmark that we were aiming for.
Yeah. And, even when you reach the multi-millionaire status and you have millions of dollars, I can tell you, I'm still packing your lunches in Tupperware, aren't I?
Absolutely.
Because when you get those fundamentals and listen, like, lifestyle creep happens to everyone, but when you get those fundamentals early and you start to see what is valuable for your time, what is an investment, what's worth it and what's not, you really start to think about that across every lived experience you have. Is this worth the money or not? Like, should I be, saving? I have friends that I think it's insane that they're buying Starbucks every day or they're buying their coffee out every day. I know that's a silly example, but for some people that are living in high cost areas, that stuff adds up.
Yeah, definitely. So I thought maybe it'd be helpful to just kind of break down how we've approached this and how we think about managing money. And that can just be helpful starting points for people that are just now getting exposure to this or really want to get their financial lives in order. And again, this is just how we do it. It's not financial advice, but this is what worked for us. And honestly, most of these principles we still use today. We actually haven't changed very much about how we budget and how we manage our finances. So the first thing that I think is really important to think about is, and it seems obvious to say out loud, but again, we're seeing that most Americans aren't doing this. So understanding your income and understanding your expenses every single month. And there's no easy way to do this. There are tools online. We'll talk about some of them in a bit, but ultimately you need to get into all of your accounts and understand how much money you're bringing in from your jobs, from all of your income sources, and how much you're spending and where all that money is going. And you don't need to get super granular with where all that money is going, but at a minimum, if you understand what's coming in and what's going out, what's servicing debt, what are subscriptions and payments, rent payments, things like that we're making, and then what am I spending on just the nice to haves, going out to eat, going out to drink, buying stuff on Amazon for my desk that I don't need. If you can just get to that point, then at least you've got a grip on, okay, this is how much money I have, and this is where I'm ultimately sending it.
And it's something else that I think is super important, depending on where you're listening. It depends on where you live. The what your gross pay and your net pay looks like differs a lot. We've lived, in Florida, we've lived in California, high cost tax states, particularly New York City, where there's 3 income taxes. That money actually does not go that far once the pay is withered away.
So there's a few things that we've been doing since the very beginning. So for almost 15 years, I've been tracking all of our income and expenses for every single month. So I know every month how much we're bringing in and where that money's going. And the very first thing that we did when you and I first got married was we focused on paying off all of our debt. So we completely got out of debt. Let's at least get to 0 and make sure that we're not paying a bunch of interest on debt that we don't need to carry. There's a lot of information online about the best ways to pay off debt. The 2 most common examples are just focusing on the debt that has the highest interest rate. I think that's the approach that's most appealing to me. The debt that has the highest interest rate is ultimately going to cost you the most because you're paying so much interest on that debt. Folks like Dave Ramsey, he's got the popular snowball method, which makes sense. It's popular for a lot of people. It's just paying off the debt that you can pay off the quickest, because then it builds confidence and builds momentum, even though if mathematically that's not the most important debt to pay off. A lot of people do that. It works for them. And then once we got out of debt, we set a bunch of really aggressive savings rate goals each year. So a percentage of our net income that we take home, how much of that are we putting into savings? And you and I would sit down at the beginning of every single year and say, this year, let's aim for 30%. By the way, the recommended amount to retire by 65 is somewhere around 5 or 6% of your income. So we were saving 30% of our income by cutting as many of the expenses out of our lives as possible. And then we maintain that goal every single year. Some years we actually increased it. But ultimately, as our income kept growing, we tried to maintain that percentage. So we were putting more cash in savings every single year.
Yeah. And that's actually kind of one of the few money lessons that I got from my parents is they used to pay our mortgage twice a month. That was their thing that they did. And we actually, by the age of, I was 9 years old when we owned our house outright, and they own that house right now outright. And none of their friends were doing that. And there was a money squeeze for us to pay a mortgage twice a month, but we ended up getting to home ownership so much faster.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, and then you don't have to worry about the mortgage, right? You don't have to worry about servicing that debt for the next 15 years or however long it would have taken if they just didn't do it twice a month instead of once. The other thing that I think is really important for people to understand is, and it's shocking how few people actually get this, the difference between an asset and a liability.
Yeah.
And the classic example of this is people that showcase their wealth, right? You buy expensive jewelry, you buy expensive watches, expensive clothes, a nice car. These are not assets. And some people are going to argue, well, a watch might appreciate in value, blah, blah, blah. I don't believe in any of that nonsense. Those are all depreciating assets. The likelihood that you're buying something that's going to appreciate over time, especially something like an expensive car, those are all just liabilities. You're paying for an auto loan, or you're buying something that makes you look rich, but ultimately is just going to cost you money.
I can tell you, having lived in Silicon Valley for 5 years and working directly underneath a billionaire and working with a number of other billionaires, that the richest, most successful people do not show it off. They don't wear the fancy watches. They wear the same t-shirts and jeans. And guess what? Spoiler alert. Guess what they're all drinking? Do you know?
Sparkling water.
Diet Coke.
Diet Coke. Sure.
The only treat that the billionaires that I worked for wanted in their day-to-day was their Diet Coke. Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, everybody drinks Diet Coke. The more that people are showcasing their wealth, in my experience, the less likely they are to actually be truly wealthy. Everyone that I've ever met that's a centimillionaire to a billionaire, of which I know many, they all dress as if they are an ordinary person. And you know what? It actually makes a lot of sense. Living here in Los Angeles, it's better to be unknown and have money. It's better to walk quietly and be wealthy than to try to show it off, because it attracts so much attention that is not always great.
Yeah, it's because wealthy people understand that you put that money in places that will make you more money over time. These are things that'll either appreciate in value or improve cash flow, right? So, when you're talking about things like good debt versus bad debt, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about good debt because the whole point of this conversation is the basics 101. But examples of good debt are just things like, consolidating debt or business loans to expand your business, mortgages for rental properties and things like that that are appreciating in value or improving your cash flow. But ultimately, most people just need to learn how to avoid bad debt. Again, things like car loans for expensive cars. You should be buying a car that serves your utility need. Your utility need is, I need to go to work. I need to get from point A to point B. Or I need a vehicle that I can use to make sure that my kids are safe when I'm driving them around. And not something that showcases your wealth. Wealthy people just don't do that kind of stuff. Credit card debt, retail financing, payday loans, those are the types of things that just dig you deeper and deeper into a hole. So the sooner you can pay those things off and get out of those things, the better off you will be. It certainly worked that way for us.
Yeah, and I do think that there are certain luxuries that you see people have that increase, with their wealth. You can get a little bit nicer car, of course. There's a good reason why you might want to get a bit, nicer car. Certainly, a lot of folks are aware that there's a tax write-off if you get a certain large
but
car
that's
in the
advanced level stuff, and that's not going to apply to most people.
No, I think
safety and getting from point A to point B, like those are the only two things that really matter in a vehicle.
Yeah, I think for the majority of people, but generally speaking, I think that trying to showcase your wealth as a means of, having a better status in society is ultimately like not the true sign of people that are wealthy and thriving.
Yeah, I mean, who cares? Who cares what other people think about you? Why do you need to show off that you made some money, got a bonus or something else? Take your annual bonus that you get from work, save that money, and in a future episode, we'll talk about ways that we've invested money and what's worked for us and things like that. But the more you save that money, the earlier you save that money, the more it'll pay off for you in the future. The longer it sits there, the better it is.
So in terms of folks that are saying, okay, I want to start actually budgeting, you've convinced me, it's something I've put off. It's my 2025 goal is to get my money in order, which is one of the top goals for a lot of people. So I know absolutely some of you that are watching or listening today are doing that. What would you recommend they do to get started?
So again, not financial advice. This is what we did, and this is how I learned. And that's, just my experience. So again, it comes back to what I was saying earlier, really just getting a handle on your income and your expenses, getting out of debt, paying off the debt. And then once you're out of debt, setting targets and starting to save aggressively. Always make sure that you reserve some of your income to pay yourself. So pay the bills you need to pay. And then the rest, you say, I'm going to pay X amount or X percent every single month to myself in the form of savings. Put that aside. And then what's left, you can think about discretionary spending, things you want to get yourself, going out to eat, seeing your friends, so on and so forth. If you put all that money in savings that you commit to yourself and you've got nothing left over, oh well, it's important to stick to the plan that you have in place and focus on that rather than the discretionary spending. The discretionary spending should never come before you pay yourself and save money.
So for us, and this is just the very basics today's episode, and please comment below what you want to hear next when it comes to finance, like how deep you want to get into this. We can talk about investing. We can talk about financial independence. There's a lot we can get into. But for us, we did a lot of it on spreadsheets because
I still do it all in spreadsheets.
Yeah. So this is what's hilarious. A lot of the cool tools that people are using today didn't really exist when we started, or they weren't really like up to snuff for Pav. So we have a lot of formulas that we use. We do it pretty old school. But we did find there are 2 recommended tools for budgeting that I think are really helpful for folks. So I'm going to give you 2 different options if you want to jump into this. The first one is called Pocket Guard. So Pocket Guard is more of a app and software for people that want to be hands off with their money. So if you just kind of want to learn about the trends and the basics of where your money is going, if you want to look at analytics, if you want to see patterns and understand how to budget better, how to have, your net worth goals, it's really good to use something like Pocket Guard. It is designed for, I'd say probably newcomers the most, right? Out of all of them.
Yeah. And I think it's a great way to just have a sense of the big picture and understand what's going on. It's helpful to think about your life, your goals, and how you want to reach those goals. And it's just a great way to do it.
Yeah. And I think for most people that I've spoken to, they do need an app and they do need a software to do it for them because it's very complex stuff. And so if you don't have the time to learn all of it, definitely using one of these softwares is helpful. The other one, You Need a Budget, has been around for a really, really long time. Decades.
It's literally called You Need a Budget.
YNAB. Yeah, YNAB. So that one's been around for decades. This one is a lot more hands-on. You get micro level. You focus on every penny you spend. This could be a little bit intimidating, but if you're a big learner, so Paul, for instance, is one of the people that really likes to dive in and understand and learn things. I'm probably more of a Pocket Guard girl that wants to be a little bit more hands-off, but generally understand how things are heading. I think that one could be a good fit for you. We've linked them both below, and check them out. I think a tool is the right way to go if you are new to this.
You could also just be a crazy person like me and build your own spreadsheets and do everything the old-fashioned way. I think YNAB is probably the closest to that because it's really hands-on and you really spend the time getting into the details and understanding where your money goes.
Well, I don't know. Comment if you guys want to see Pablo's spreadsheet. Maybe we should share the template. That's funny. Okay. So now we're going to move to our final segment, Legit AF or Lame AF. Have you seen today's question?
I have not. So I'm a little bit nervous about what you've picked.
Okay. I picked today's. So Legit AF or Lame AF. I'm ready to torch you. Taylor Swift.
Oh, man. You're going to have the Swifties come after me? Are you kidding me? Oh, boy. Look, I don't dislike Taylor Swift. I think it's just fine. I guess I see the appeal. So I wouldn't say it's legit. I admire her business acumen and what she's been able to accomplish and what she's built. This Eras tour is very impressive. Obviously, they made a buttload of money.
Buttload?
But yeah, I think that's
it's twice as much as any other tour in American
Okay,
history.
so double buttload.
Yeah. 2x buttload.
It's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive. Do I like the music? It's fine when it's on the radio. It's certainly not my favorite, but
okay, so legit.
I'll put her in the legit category. Sure.
You better put her in the legit. Fun fact: the first time I ever heard Taylor Swift was Pavle sending me a clip. Remember Love Song?
Yes,
you
I do.
sent me that when we first started dating.
I did.
You did. It was the first time I ever
that.
heard Taylor Swift. It was from you.
Well, you're welcome.
Okay, and number 2. And by the way, I'm going to go legit AF too. I don't listen to her music, but she is awesome. Okay, Pav. Number 2 is air fryers.
So I think that I would starve to death without air fryers. I am a terrible cook. I can boil things and microwave things and air fry things. And thankfully, the air fryer gets me 90% of the way there. So air fryers are probably one of the most legit things that have been invented in, I don't know when they were invented. They were probably invented in like the 50s or something, but I feel like they've kind of come into their own in the last decade or so where now everybody's got an air fryer. So if you don't already have an air fryer, you better get yourself one because it is so easy and the food is just so much better than any other option. So
linking our air fryer below.
I'm
this
a
is like
huge
quite a
fan.
testament.
I mean, it literally makes 90% of my meals.
I'm waiting for just like a little snippet, like Pav, air fryers changed my life.
I mean, I think it certainly made it able for me to actually make meals for myself.
Okay. Air fryers are obviously legit AF. Everybody needs an air fryer. So that brings today's episode to a close. If you have got comments or topics you'd like to see us cover, you can follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook with Legit AF Pod, or drop us a line on our site, legitafpod.com. As always, you can catch our podcast with new episodes every Tuesday morning across YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And I guess we're going to be linking an air fryer link today.
Why not?
Yeah, whatever.
I've got some recommendations. We can put together some of the best ones.
Okay. All right. Look, apparently this guy over here is like a culinary trained chef of air fryers.
Yes.
Yeah. Remember that one that we left up in Alaska?
Yes, RIP that air fryer.
RIP our first air fryer. We took it on a road trip and we knew we wouldn't be able to bring it home and we took it out to pasture. Sorry.
We gave it away.
Little buddies in Anchorage. Okay. All right.
Peace.
Peace.